They called the Ho Chi Minh Trail impenetrable, a shadow network stretching over 12,000 miles through mountains and jungle, vital to North Vietnam's war machine. For years, Allied planners believed convoys simply vanished by night, beyond the reach of overwhelming firepower. But in 1970, when Cambodia's Sihanoukville port closed and tonnage surged at Ban Karai Pass, the myth of a safe supply route began to unravel. How could entire convoys disappear beneath the world's most intense bombing campaign? The answer would reshape everything you thought you knew about the logistics war in Southeast Asia. The Ho Chi Minh Trail was more than a single road. It was a sprawling network over 12,000 miles long at its peak, weaving through some of the most rugged terrain in Southeast Asia. From the limestone ridges of northern Vietnam, the routes plunged into the dense forests and steep valleys of Laos and Cambodia. The trail wound through the Annamite Mountains, where the land folded into deep ravines and narrow passes. One of the most notorious choke points was the Ban Karai Pass. Here, the mountains rose sharply, forcing all movement through a narrow corridor hemmed in by cliffs and thick jungle. Digital elevation models and reconnaissance imagery from the era reveal a landscape riddled with obstacles, sheer slopes, hidden streams, and sudden drops. The geology of Ban Karai Pass itself is marked by fractured limestone, creating natural caves and overhangs that shielded traffic from aerial observation. The sheer scale of the network defied easy tracking. Paths branched and rejoined, some just wide enough for a bicycle, others graded for heavy trucks. In places, the trail split into dozens of parallel tracks, each one vanishing beneath the jungle canopy. Allied planners confronted a logistics corridor that, if laid end to end, would stretch halfway around the world. The immensity of the trail meant that even the most intense bombing campaigns struggled to cover every route. Maps from U.S. intelligence briefings in the late 1960s traced a labyrinth of roads, footpaths, and supply dumps, with Ban Karai Pass standing out as a critical bottleneck. To visualize the breadth of the trail is to understand why it became a symbol of endurance and ingenuity. Every mile represented a challenge, mountains to cross, rivers to ford, and constant threats from the air. Yet day after day, the network absorbed the pressure and kept the supply lines open, setting the stage for an unprecedented escalation in the air war that followed. In the spring of 1970, the war's logistics map changed overnight. Cambodia's deepwater port at Sihanoukville, once a lifeline for North Vietnamese supplies, was suddenly closed to communist traffic after a shift in Cambodian policy. With the port sealed, every ton of ammunition, fuel, and food now had to move overland, straight through the labyrinth of the Ho Chi Minh Trail. Intelligence analysts in Saigon and Washington pored over new traffic reports. What they saw was a dramatic surge. Where the trail had once handled 3,000 to 4,000 tons a month, estimates after the closure jumped to as high as 10 or even 12,000 tons in peak periods. CIA and DIA intercepts tracked convoys pushing through the Mujia and Ban Karai passes at rates not seen before. March 1971 saw nearly 6,000 tons cross Mujia alone, compared to just over 4,500 tons the year before. Some U.S. planners calculated that in the months after Sihanoukville shut down, as much as 60,000 tons of supplies flowed south over the trail during the dry season, double or triple previous levels. The numbers rattled Allied command. The trail, already immense, now carried the full weight of Hanoi's southern war effort. Every new truckload meant more pressure on American and South Vietnamese forces. Planners argued that if the trail couldn't be stopped now, it might never be. The sense of urgency was unmistakable. As the tonnage figures soared, The debate over how to respond grew louder. The trail's transformation from a dangerous back door to the main artery of the war forced a new reckoning inside Allied headquarters. The scale of supply movement, once thought impossible, was now a daily reality, fueling calls for an even more intense campaign to shut the corridor down. Operation Barrel Roll began quietly in December 1964, with American planners targeting the northern arteries of the Ho Chi Minh Trail as they snaked through the mountains of Laos. What started as a handful of armed reconnaissance flights quickly grew. By 1968, Barrel Roll averaged 10 to 20 sorties a day. Within a year, the tempo soared to 200, and at its peak in 1969, as many as 300 sorties thundered over the northern passes in a single day. The mission was relentless. Bomb every road, every bridge, every suspected convoy route. Maps from the period show a dense web of targets stretching from the Mujia Pass to the plain of Jars, each one struck again and again in an effort to choke off the flow of supplies. The geography of northern Laos, with its deep valleys and narrow defiles, forced traffic into predictable corridors. Air planners believed that if they could hammer these choke points hard enough, the trail might finally break. But the pressure only mounted. As supply traffic surged after the closure of Sihanoukville, the air war expanded. In November 1968, a new campaign, Operation Commando Hunt, shifted the focus south, zeroing in on the main trunk lines feeding men and materiel into South Vietnam. Commando Hunt ran in 7 phases, each one marked by a fresh wave of bombing. During peak periods, the campaign unleashed 400 to 500 sorties a day over the Southern Trail. Between 1968 and 1973, Commando Hunt and its parent operation, Steel Tiger, accounted for more than 316,000 tactical air sorties in southern Laos alone. Barrel Roll added another 84,000 in the north. The scale was staggering. Nearly every available aircraft not engaged over North Vietnam or South Vietnam was pressed into the fight. The United States dropped over 2 million tons of bombs on Laos during these years, more than was dropped on Europe during World War II. Yet for all the firepower, the trail endured. The bombing campaigns became a test of logistics and endurance, not just for the North Vietnamese, but for the Allied air planners tasked with tracking, targeting, and striking a supply network that refused to stay still. Each new operation brought more resources, more missions, and a growing sense that the war along the trail was being fought as much on the ground as in the air. In 1967, American planners turned to the sky not just for bombs, but for clouds. Operation Popeye began as a classified project to change the very weather over the Ho Chi Minh Trail. The idea was simple in theory: extend the monsoon season, turn the roads to mud, and slow the endless convoys funneling supplies south. Over 5 years, from 1967 to 1972, aircraft flew more than 2,600 cloud-seeding sorties, releasing silver iodide and lead iodide into storm systems above key trail sectors in Laos. The main targets included the Mujia and Ban Karai passes, choke points already hammered by bombs, now targeted by rain. The operation was so secret that even senior officers in the field were kept in the dark. Officially, only a handful of top Pentagon and State Department leaders received briefings. Congressional oversight was bypassed until 1974, when news of the program finally leaked, triggering debate over the ethics and legality of weather warfare. The technical reports from the period claimed local rainfall increases of up to 30% in some seeded areas, but the evidence for real disruption on the ground was far less convincing. Convoy logs from the North Vietnamese side, as well as U.S. after-action reviews, showed that while some roads became boggy and required more frequent repairs, traffic rarely stopped for long. The trail's engineers adapted quickly. They built drainage ditches, laid gravel, and used bamboo matting to stabilize the worst sections. Rain or not, the supply lines kept moving. By the time Operation Popeye ended in July 1972, its legacy was a stack of classified reports, a brief spike in congressional hearings, and a lingering question about the limits of technological intervention. The attempt to weaponize the weather stands as a testament to the breadth of Allied innovation and its boundaries. While bombs cratered the earth and chemicals drifted through the clouds, the real contest on the trail would be decided by human hands, not just machines. Night fell quickly over the mountains, and with it, the Ho Chi Minh Trail came alive. Convoys assembled in the blackness, headlights masked by narrow slits, every truck ordered to keep its cabin dark. Drivers waited for the signal, sometimes a horn, sometimes a whispered call from the lead vehicle, before engines rumbled to life. Each convoy moved in small groups, rarely more than a dozen trucks, often as few as 3. Regulations demanded at least 200 meters between vehicles, even more in open stretches to avoid a single bomb wiping out an entire column. The road ahead was invisible, except for the pale glow leaking from the masked lamps, just enough to keep a tire out of a crater. The routine was strict. Convoys departed from their staging points as soon as the last light faded, aiming to reach the next way station before dawn. Drivers kept their windows open, listening for the drone of American aircraft, ready to swerve off the road and vanish into the jungle at the first sign of trouble. Every trip meant hours of silent, tense driving, broken only by the hiss of brakes or the crackle of a radio, if one was allowed. Blackout rules were absolute. Even a single stray flashlight could draw disaster from above. Testimonies from Group 559 drivers described the strain of these nights. One remembered his hands trembling on the wheel, the forest pressing in on all sides, every shadow a possible threat. Mechanics rode with each group, prepared to fix a broken axle or patch a tire in the dark, knowing that a stranded truck could not be left until morning. In the darkness, the trail belonged to those who knew its every bend and hiding place, moving by instinct, memory, and a discipline honed by survival. Engineers along the Ho Chi Minh Trail became legendary for their speed and creativity. When bombs tore through a bridge or left a crater in the road, repair teams were already waiting nearby, tools and timber in hand. North Vietnamese engineering logs describe how some routes were restored in less than 4 hours, even under the threat of renewed airstrikes. Pontoon bridges built from steel drums and bamboo floated across rivers, like the Z Bang Phi, say Bang Phi, and could be assembled or dismantled in a single night. These bridges often vanished before dawn, pulled apart and hidden along the banks, denying pilots any fixed target by daylight. In the steepest sections, cable pulley lifts hauled trucks and supplies up muddy slopes where no ordinary engine could climb. Photos from captured PAVN archives show trucks dangling from thick steel cables, inching their way over ravines that had been bombed only hours before. Road repair crews, sometimes entire battalions, worked through the night with hand tools and scavenged material, filling craters with logs, gravel, or even chunks of wrecked vehicles. Every bin tram, the way stations dotting the trail, kept their own stockpiles of planks, fuel, and spare parts, ready for emergencies. American reconnaissance flights often returned to find a road cratered one day and open to traffic the next. These improvisations did more than keep the convoys moving. They turned every destroyed bridge or bombed-out pass into a test of ingenuity, where speed and adaptation mattered more than any blueprint. The trail's resilience came not just from its scale, but from the hands and minds of those who refused to let it break. Sensors dotted the jungle floor, listening for the rumble of engines or the crunch of tires on gravel. Each time a seismic or acoustic sensor tripped, the signal leapt skyward to a relay aircraft, an EC-121 or a QU-22B circling above the mountains. From there, data streamed to the Infiltration Surveillance Center at Nakhon Phanom, where analysts worked around the clock, eyes fixed on glowing consoles. The system promised near-instant detection, but reality was measured in minutes and hours, not seconds. Under ideal conditions, ISC analysts could process and flag a convoy signal within 15 to 45 minutes. Ambiguous triggers, sensor failures, and false alarms, often caused by animals or decoy noise, added delays. The next link in the chain was even slower. Once a target was confirmed, the Airborne Battlefield Command and Control Center had to retask strike aircraft. If planes were already airborne and close, the window from analysis to tasking sometimes held at 30 minutes. More often, it stretched to an hour or longer, especially during periods of bad weather, high mission density, or when relay aircraft struggled with attrition and signal loss. Each minute mattered. North Vietnamese convoys, moving at night and spaced hundreds of meters apart, could pass a sensor string and vanish into the jungle before any bombs fell. ISC logs show that by the time aircraft arrived on station, the original target zone was often empty. The latency, built from sensor lag, relay attrition, and the mechanics of air tasking, created exploitable windows. In practice, the system's promise of real-time interdiction was undermined by a chain of delays that the trail's operators learned to anticipate and exploit. In February 1971, South Vietnamese troops crossed into Laos in a bold attempt to sever the Ho Chi Minh Trail at its heart. Operation Lam Son 719 sent columns of ARVN armor and infantry up Route 9, aiming for the key logistics hub at Chipon. For weeks, the trail became a battlefield. Allied planners watched for signs that the supply network would finally buckle under direct attack. Instead, what unfolded was a field test of the trail's resilience under fire. As ARVN forces advanced, North Vietnamese engineers mobilized in force. Vietnamese records detail entire engineering battalions working around the clock to repair roads, lay new bypasses, and ferry supplies across bombed-out sections. In one documented case, a bridge destroyed by airstrikes near Ban Dong was replaced with a temporary span in less than 12 hours, allowing convoys to resume before dawn. When Route 9 was cut by shellfire, teams rerouted traffic through jungle tracks mapped in advance for just such emergencies. Road repair logs from PAVN engineering units note that some bypasses were cleared and operational within a single day, while craters were filled with logs, gravel, and even sections of destroyed vehicles. Reconnaissance flights captured the scale of these efforts. Where bomb damage appeared one day, fresh tire tracks and new earthworks showed up the next. ARVN after-action reports noted that supply traffic, though disrupted, never fully stopped. Convoys simply shifted to alternate routes, sometimes moving just a few hundred meters from the original road, hidden by canopy and smoke from burning brush. As the fighting raged, the trail's logistics flow bent, but did not break. The engineers, often working under artillery and air attack, kept the arteries open, improvising with whatever materials were at hand. By the time Lam Son 719 ended in March, the trail had absorbed the blow and adapted, leaving the final verdict to the data still being gathered. At its peak, the Ho Chi Minh Trail spanned more than 12,000 miles, funneling thousands of tons of supplies each month, especially after the closure of Sihanoukville in 1970. Allied air campaigns like Barrel Roll, Commando Hunt, and Popeye launched hundreds of thousands of sorties. Yet PAVN convoys continued moving at night, guided by strict blackout rules and rapid repair teams. Sensor grids cut detection time to as little as 15 minutes, but delays in analysis and strike coordination left crucial gaps. Documents confirm that even in the intense weeks of Operation Lamson 719 in early 1971, logistics flows were rerouted within days. Many details about the trail's inner workings and total losses remain classified or fragmentary. Still, the record shows that adaptation on both sides defined the supply war. Today, the Ho Chi Minh Trail stands as evidence of how technology and human ingenuity collide, reminding us that even the most impenetrable defenses can be overcome by resilience and innovation.